3 of the Speedcafe eSeries Championship, and today our venue is the picturesque Phillip Island circuit located just 142 kilometres from the centre of Melbourne, just off the beautiful Victorian coastline. Except today it's at our fingertips as drivers from all around Australia and New Zealand descend on the iRacing service and throw their hat in the ring for ultimate glory and $400 in Supercheap Auto vouchers given out to the top 3 drivers tonight, all on Speedcafe TV, part of the world's #1 independent motorsport news website. And we're going to dive straight into the action with our 3-part qualifying format. And to take you through the coverage, my name is Ryan Jones, alongside me Scott Rankin and Peter Davison. And Scott, it's an exciting format tonight, one that means drivers can ill afford any mistakes.
Yeah, we've seen that the last couple of rounds, how critical it is to bring the tyres up to temperature. Shorter lap here, a little bit harsher on tyres. I think that's going to give them a lot better of an opportunity to get their tyres into the right temperature range. Could be interesting in terms of qualifying tonight. We just had a little bit of a discussion beforehand. I think this session, this split in terms of where you want to be qualifying, has the best track temperature, has the best conditions. Nothing's really laid down. This is prime time. If anyone, like we saw, was it Chris Island from last round that jumped immediately up to the top, and it took a very, very long time for him to actually be beaten. So I'm keen to see what our first group of qualifying drivers will actually have for us here tonight.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The track temp right now is 24 degrees. It's just about 9 o'clock in sim time. The track is really cool. Optimal track temperature. But as more and more cars get out there and start laying rubber down and generating heat in the track, and as the sim time continues to tick over, it's going to get hotter. It's going to get tougher for those drivers. Like, the groups are set based off our practice times. So our slowest dozen from practice just a few minutes ago are out first. But as we saw last week, as you mentioned, Christopher Ireland didn't nail it in practice, certainly nailed it in qualifying, was fastest in this Q1 group and ended up starting, I think it was inside the top 5 overall on the grid. Didn't have the best of races after that, had great pace, went back to 30th after a spin, came back to finish 11th. Look for some stories like that tonight, drivers carving through the field or fighting back from a less than ideal qualifying. Fitzroy Beaumont will be a driver looking for a strong result tonight, moves himself up to 4th place, immediately dislodged back though as drivers set more and more times as we see tyres come up to temperature, pressures come up as well. Peter, what's the optimal lap here in a GT3 car to nail it in qualifying?
Well, I must say, hello Ryan, hello Scott. Rob Carmichael with the 26.8, it's a pretty good lap considering where we are in the qualifying session. He's just coming around after heating his tyres up, so we'll start to see maybe lap 3, lap 4. Again, how much fuel have these guys got on? We saw in the last round people were very compromised for fuel in qualifying. They were trying to keep the cars as light as possible. We all know these GT3 cars respond differently depending how you heat the tyres up, so we'll start to see some fast lap times now. But yeah, 26.8 for Rob Carmichael, that's a cracker.
It is. It's got 2 tenths up on Marlon McMullen, is currently 2nd. Yeah, Damon Woods last round put it on pole and then immediately ran out of fuel before he even got to turn 1. So certainly running the barest minimum of extra weight in these cars as they can. As we see Amar Sharma here in the number 41. He's currently last of the drivers a set of times. Hasn't got a representative lap on the board as of yet, 10 seconds off his practice time. In the Audi out there, great range of machinery on display today. Scott, is it 5 or 6 different manufacturers for drivers to choose from?
Yeah, I think we're at 5. So obviously last round we saw a lot of Lamborghinis. That seemed to be really one of the cars that people were coming on strong. Wore its tyres out quite a lot. There was a lot of banter in the Discord and people were sort of humming and hawing about car choices for those that are newer drivers coming in. It's quite difficult because you've got to choose a car and then you're stuck into that car. The Ferrari appears to be the stronger one of the cars, and Rob Carmichael up at the top nice and early, that appears to sort of back that in a little bit. From Phillip Island, I have recent history that does back that up as well. So I'm banking on the Ferrari being strong here. We know that the BMW is going to be quite good. The Mercedes is always there, and the tricky thing for the Mercedes is as that fuel burns off, it gets a little wiggly. I have a feeling the Mercedes, in the way that people drive it and set it up, actually cook the rear tyres a little bit. So watch out for wiggling rear ends of the Mercedes. And just remember Lachlan Capel had a wiggly Mercedes early on last round out and finished on the podium. So maybe that's the best way to go.
Well, at the moment, it is a Ferrari that leads the way from a Mercedes, and then a Porsche, and then a BMW, which is the car of choice for the man that's dominated the first 2 rounds, Damon Woods. So at the moment, some great balance of performance in effect with 4 manufacturers inside the top 4. Here is Adam Willison, that leading Porsche. He's third on the timesheets at the moment with a 1:27.0. That puts him just 2/10 off Rob Carmichael's time as he goes through pit entry, and that is going to be one of our big talking points tonight, Peter. Pit entry, pit exit, they're extremely tricky for very different reasons.
Well, they certainly are. Pit entry is very easy to run wide, and it's not the sort of place you want to run wide, because you could find yourself back out on Swan Curve onto the start-finish straight, or you could find yourself in the ditch. Neither of those ways are very fast. Just back to lap times at the moment. Pre-qualifying, we saw Wayne Ross Rizzo around the 1:26.2s, so there's still half a second in this circuit.
It's Rob Carmichael, I think, backwards out of the southern loop.
Super cheap auto replay for Pursuit Sim Racing, the Ferrari that's currently fastest, just a little too eager on the throttle. Coming out of southern loop, as you rightly pointed out, Scott, and backs it off and out of the way. Lucky not to run up onto that embankment. I have gotten myself stuck with that embankment more than once in iRacing. It's deceptive out there.
Yeah, quite a steep little embankment as well. And there's another one coming out of Siberia on the left-hand side as well. So multiple little jumps around the track, if you will. Although I don't think anyone will be wanting to take motocross style to the limit. Pete, you had a comment there?
I was just going to comment, boys, pit exit. Very interesting at Phillip Island. Obviously, you've got to take the short exit when you're exiting, and you need to keep an eye on your relative and an eye on your mirrors, because if you've got 1 or 2 cars battling down the start-finish straight, slipstreaming each other, they don't know you're coming out, and all of a sudden you pop out at top speed in front of the pack. So that's going to be an interesting point tonight.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I think we're going to maybe around 16 to 18 lap mark. We'll start to see pit stops tonight. So.
Yeah, that's a perfect camera angle. Actually, that's a really, really good camera angle to highlight the point here. So the one right back up at the top that we just saw underneath the Melbourne Bridge sign on the left-hand side, see how that little Y turn right there where the road splits? The drivers will be following the left-hand side of that blue cone right there. That signifies the pit lane exit. Right there. There's another one to our right driver's left, which is known as the Moto pit lane exit, and that's the long, extended one. Generally, if there's somebody that's feeding back in laps down, that's generally the exit that I'll take. It's designed for people to get in the way, feed in a better little angle. If something's going wrong and you still want to be out there, you still want to be participating, it's a good little way to feed back in without causing dramas. And speaking of dramas,
that is not the optimal line.
Thanks, Race Stars, for the drone camera. The great camera angle to explain that.
That was perfect. That was great camera work. I love that.
That's the 127 of Russ Green that's found himself off in the green. That's just exiting turn 11. One of the other places where you're trying to really maximize. Turns 11 and 12 seem easy on paper, but there's very little room for error. If you run it a little too wide, you're going to end up off in the grass on the exit and spin around, or just get too eager on the throttle, and you're going to break traction very easily, which is what I suspect Russ Green has done there. As we pick up Fitzroy Beaumont once again for Vermilion Motorsport, a driver we saw a lot of in round 2. He was in the thick of the action for much of the 45-minute race. We'll have 45 minutes on the clock again this evening. Currently he's 10th fastest at 127.4. I don't think he's got it right yet. He's still 2/10 off what he was able to do in practice, and that's a pretty solid benchmark, Scott, because in sim practice was only a few minutes ago, and track conditions have not changed much at all. In qualifying, you want to at least be matching what you were able to produce earlier on tonight.
Yeah, but it's under more tricky circumstances. In practice, there's no pressure on. There's no psychological factors going in there. Yeah, there's probably a few more cars that are actually out on track, so it is a little bit difficult to get that track position that you need to get out there and set your lap. But in terms of how things are run in qualifying. You know, you've only got a limited time to get the lap in. You've got to spend 2 laps bringing the tyres into temperature. And then if you just overcook it, you make a slight mistake on that 3rd lap, you're on the edge. You could pick up some damage, and Chris Pellet's bravely pushing the edges of that pit lane. That's what drivers are on. It is not just that pit lane entry tonight, guys, as well. It's everything within qualifying. You pick up a little bit of grass around here, you're losing seconds, you're losing the lap, and that could be critical. It could be absolutely critical.
Looks like we're coming close to closing for the first session of qualifying. Rob Carmichael's still at number 1 with a 126.78. Marlon's on a 126.810. No, Adam Wilson's just coming over him with a 126.810. Marlon's a 126.88. Jamie McKnight's in P4 with a 127 flat. Luke Brown is a new contender tonight. He hasn't been here before. Luke's in at 5th position with a 127.1, so it's very tight at the top.
Yeah. Now, I wonder, hear me out, if there were some games being played by a few of these drivers. Oh, Willison popped up to 2nd. Right at the end there, a 26.810 gets himself in between Carmichael and McMullen. I wonder if there were some games being played, because Carmichael has gone half a second quicker than he did in practice. Willison 4/10, McMullen 6/10. Were they employing some sandbags of some description to get themselves into Q1? Because they spotted what we spotted, Scott. Track conditions are going to be at their best early on in this session.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword. The problem with qualifying, it's a two-way street, right? So what you gain is better track conditions. What you lose is you're going to be in and around drivers that may not necessarily be on the same sort of pace you are. So the opportunity for you to catch a car at an inopportune moment and potentially shed that qualifying lap, you've got to reset, you've got to go all over again. You've got to set up the pass, because nobody's going to be wanting to give up track position once they've started their laps in qualifying either. The only time they'll be doing that is they know that their qualifying is just going to get abandoned as the second group's going to roll out a pit lane as well. It's tricky. You don't really want to sandbag it too much. Somebody's going to notice something. It's a difficult. There is no right answer. Is I think probably the best way to approach this whole situation. It's just that difficult. You got to get it right. You got to get it right on repeat. And you've got to be in at the right time on the right piece of track. There's so many games going on. The difficulty I have with this qualifying is the shortness of it, the abruptness of it. They get a lot of laps, but have a look at these games that are playing on the warm-up lap. Remember Matt Dench last week and what he was actually doing with the track position that he had. I think we're going to see a little bit more of that again here tonight. Shorter lap time as well, so the cars are a lot more condensed. You're going to see a lot more traffic.
As we pick up Zach Rattray White for Kyla Tire Control Racing. He just got caught out there coming out of Siberia, a slow-moving BMW in the way. And those BMWs are famously quite large for a GT3 machine. And what Zach's got to do now is make sure he gives himself enough room to the back of that BMW that he doesn't get held up. The problem with that is cars aren't quite as patient, want to come by you as well. And so you're stuck in an eternal battle of trying to build track position and tyre temp and pressures all at the same time. Very tricky feat to get right, but I reckon he's found a decent piece of real estate. It's Jared Knight, still slow moving, going through turn 12.
If you can get a nice tow out of Swan down the start-finish straight, there's certainly a couple of kilometres to be had there. Just on pre-qualifying times, we had Rob with a 126.85, Adam Willison was a 126.6, so he was a little quicker, and Marlon was a 126.8. Yeah,
so definitely something amiss for them in practice to be so far off pre-qual and quali, but I reckon some smart tactics employed there. We'll see if they get top 3 tonight. We'll have to ask them about it, because it could be one of the deciding factors. Sebastian Vandel, another Pursuit sim racing car, will be hoping to join Rob Carmichael up towards the top of the timesheets. Just made his way out of Miller Corner, aptly named after the current MotoGP Australian sensation. It was only about October last year, before the MotoGP round, that Miller received that honour.
And Lee Williamson as well. I've known Lee a really long time. Actually, one of the first endurance racing drivers actually went racing with. It pushed me a lot more towards the GT3s. Big fan of the V8 supercars. Drives a heck of a lot of V8 supercars. He's been putting a lot of time and effort over the last 6 months into really improving his skill set. He's a little bit of an underdog, quite underrated, quite just sort of lurks there under the radar. And then he'll just pop one of these just amazing times out of the blue. And we'll all sit there and go, where did that come from? Yeah, that's just lead for you. So expect some times from him. I'm really curious how he does tonight because I think he's got potential to be towards the top 10. So I think he'll probably be a little bit frustrated if he doesn't make it inside the top 10.
We'll keep an eye on him then as he makes his way out of Southern Loop. Ocean to the right. Such a beautiful racetrack to go racing at. As we see one of those pursuit cars coming across the line.
Not a lot of time to have a look around though at the scenery, especially if you're going into Doon around the Southern Loop.
Get a good look down the main straight once you peek underneath that bridge, but yes, then very quickly through Doon, which is an extremely fast corner in any race car, not the least a GT3. Jackson Austin currently sits 20th after his first 2 flyers. Currently on lap number 3, a 27.7 best effort for him, about 6/10 off what he could manage in practice. And Brody Shepherd is just up the road in his all-black Lamborghini. Can never go wrong with an all-black race car.
Full send racing, bro. Full send. Maybe we need someone to do a livery for them, unless it's just not popping up in tonight's broadcast.
Just got off the inside of Jared Knight, who was staying out of the way through Hayshed, but extremely fast corner later in the race. If we see any drivers going side by side through there, it will be a hold your breath moment.
Seen Zach Rattray White's popped up into 4th now, or say 5th now. Sebastian Darnell in the 4th with a 126.9. Zach Rattray's into 5th with a 126.9. Oh, we've got Zach now finished another lap. He's into 2nd position with a 126.7.
And there's less than a 10th covering our top 3 drivers at the moment. We saw this last round where there was less than a 10th covering about half a dozen drivers until Damon Woods and Matthew Dench eclipsed the field by quite some margin.
I can tell you as well tonight, guys, it's going to be incredibly important for a couple of reasons. The tyres will fall off throughout the race. That is a big risk. So yeah, just be a little bit concerned about looking after your tyres, guys. Don't get too antsy with getting out there and getting after things as hard as you possibly can. It's definitely a concern.
Yeah, I was having a chat to Simon Mizzomo just a little while before we went live here, and he was giving me some info on the tyres, and basically you got to look after them. Exactly what you said, Scott. They're going to be pretty decent for the first couple of laps, but after that you're going to start to plateau off pretty hard. But it also means that strategy wise, as we see off the road for Rattray White and immediately into pit lane, it means strategy wise you're probably going to be looking for an overcut, because you're not going to gain anything by cooling those tyres off through a trip through pit lane.
Well, I mean, you get a reset. You get a couple of important laps. It's all about critical timings and when that does come in. If you're in a little battle pack, what we are going to see, and part of the racing that we actually do see at Phillip Island, the GT3 class in particular, is lots of clumps of cars. Overtaking here is actually notoriously difficult in these cars. Main reason for that: turn 1, high downforce corner. Turn 2, high downforce corner. Then you've got a nice long straight. But by the time you get back onto that straight, everyone's just spread out so much. So it's very, very difficult to stay close enough to get the move done. Would not surprise me if we see a few guys trying to hang off the back of the cars ahead of them, but stay in touch. Way!
Seth Brown finds the limits, and Alistair Bales may have got caught in a bit of a monkey see, monkey do coming out of turn 2 now. Takes the slow route round one of the faster corners on the circuit. Super Reporter replay will tell us. Put up on a brownie, dips the tyres off on the exit of turn 1, which is very easy to do and often leads to some monumental shunts early on in a race if you do that. And then coming out of Southern Loop, I think just lost a bit of that grip because of the grass on the rubber. Couldn't get it turned.
The hard on the throttle there. Got to have a nice grippy front end to come out of there fast and not get off the throttle. And if you're following another car, that could help you run off, as Alistair Bales. It's his first time here tonight in this session as well, in the season. for Speed Cafe. Alistair races with XCM. And if you ever have a spare 5 minutes, jump on Alistair Bale's sim rig on YouTube and have a look at what he's designed and built at home. It's nothing but marvellous. It's magical.
Could be a lot of new faces coming through. Oh, I just watched Sebastian Van Dell pull off a miraculous save coming out of turn 12, just off screen. Should be plenty of new drivers coming through across the course of the season. We've got over 170 people registered for the Speed Cafe eSeries, and there's still plenty of time for you to get involved as well. If you head on over to the Speed Cafe website, find the registration link, and you can get yourself involved for the back half of this season. 10 rounds, but only up to round 3. Plenty of racing still to be had as we take a look here. As Alistair Bales has got a setup worth quite a bit more than mine, I dare to say.
Well, and there's
Look at that.
Truffle there sitting in the corner. But yeah, there's Alistair's rig he designed and built. So, well, it's exciting stuff. And very fast. He's put himself into position 10 for qualifying.
That is remarkable. I want me one of those. Interesting to note, Rob Carmichael is hanging on, just like Christopher Ireland last round. Fastest driver in Q1 still holds that mantle as we get towards the end of Q2. What can Aaron Obersteller do for Vermilion? He's back in 17th at the moment. Might be his debut as well this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. At least didn't see him in round 2. As Van Dell comes through on the racetrack as Obersteller comes back to pit lane. 30 seconds left in the session. The call from race control for Group 2, I might add. Across the line for Van Dell, it's a 28.450. That is not going to find him any improvement. A couple seconds off what he needs to find at the moment. Quick dab on the brakes into turn 1, and then all the racetrack. Pull it back to the right a little bit to set yourself up for Southern Loop, which is a very long sweeping left-hander. Jackson Austin comes down through Lukey Heights. Scott, coming off Lukey Heights and then into MG is extremely difficult because the car wants to go all the way to the right as you come over that crest, but you've got to get it back to the left because otherwise you're going to be in all sorts of trouble through MG at the bottom of the hill there.
Yeah, positioning, braking in a straight line, and then obviously not trying to pinch a brake. Even though these are GT3s, they do have ABS. The problem is, as soon as you activate that ABS, you're trying to minimize your braking distance as you come up and across that crest. Out of position, obviously a big no-no. Less grip over on that right-hand side of the track. And then, if you're trying to brake even harder, well, ABS kicks in, braking distance just extends. By that point, you've just missed MG. It's tricky. This is actually, I think, right up there because in terms of Phillip Island, you look at it on the surface, from V8 Supercars perspective, a lot of these guys know this track, right? They know the ins and outs, and everyone goes, yeah, the corner turns this way. You jump in a Formula car around here, you jump in, say, a Formula 3, Formula Renault 3.5, a wide variety of cars that we've got on the sim here. Very easy track, and it's actually quite good for racing in Formula cars. GT cars is actually the more difficult racing category to run around this track. You tend to run a higher downforce configuration as well, and it's about drafting, set yourself up and making sure you've got that clean air under the nose, tire temp. GT racing has just changed so much just with that tire update this year as well. I cannot stress, we've talked about it quite at length over the last couple of rounds, but I cannot stress how much that has changed everything from a GT3 perspective. The racing last year, you could go out, your first flying lap was always your best lap. That was where the pace was. Pace sat there for forever. Didn't have to really worry about looking after the tires. The tires were quite good. Oh man, it's just changed. I love watching qualifying now in GT3. It's so difficult.
Rob Carmichael's hung in there with his 126.7. Zach Rattray in the 126.7.4, and Sebastian Van Dell in third place with the 126.765. So we've got if I may just exaggerate by 13 thousandths of a second, the top 24 cars within a second.
Let's see if we can hold that as the last 16 come out in Q3 here. And to your point, Scott, it's never evolving platform is iRacing. That's why staying at the top for an extended time is surely the mark of a very talented sim racer, or in fact, a real life racer. There's quite a few drivers out here who've cut their teeth in the real world, and just learned an interesting fact about Amar Sharma, who's been out there and currently sits 23rd, reigning Class D national champion in champion in the Mobile One Australian production cars, and as you do, accidentally bought a Class A race car for 2023 in Audi TT. So he'll be on the charge in the Mobile One Aussie Australian production cars this year. Hate when you accidentally buy an Audi TT. It's so annoying when that happens.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, he was actually at about the 6 hour just a couple of weeks ago as well, but I think he was in somebody else's car. It wasn't actually in the Audi that weekend, because I don't recall him being a part of that class and running that thing around. So I'm pretty sure that was a deal done with the Champ Racing car from memory. But in particular, Amar, I'm actually been quite pleased to know Amar for quite a long time, is a big fan of the Porsche Cup racing on iRacing. Loves it, particularly the older style of Porsche Cup car, which was the Porsche 991 variant. So look, he's comfortable, he's happy. Whoa, this is brave. Riley Bilson's doing a lap through the pit lane. I think this is to buy him some track position. Have a look at the front straight. Have a look at the front straight. There's about 5 or 6 cars all under a blanket. Chris Island among them, and they're all dithering about over track position. Boys, qualifying short. You've only got about 18 minutes left.
Mitchison just got balked hard by Damon Woods. He was on the headlight button, flashing his way down the main straight, but Woods sporked him coming out of turn number 1. And there is a few unhappy drivers out there.
I mean, it's lap 1. It's not going to matter in the relative of things. This is the game seemed Formula 1-esque, but this lap won't matter in terms of qualifying. This is just a banker.
Here comes Ross Rizzo.
Yeah.
He's coming through the pack as well. It's getting a bit of a battle pack.
Yeah, unless you're mean, you can only do your lap on your first lap, and then you're awful after that. Ross Rizzo also find his way through the labyrinth of cars that have scattered themselves across this racetrack. I mean, these are the quickest guys. These guys all know what they're doing, and they know that lap 3, lap 4, that's the lap that you want to be nailing it in terms of qualifying, at least based on what we've seen so far. But
So Ryan, on that point, do you put a banker in and pressure your tyres a little bit, or do you look after them and look after 2 or 3 laps?
That's 3. I'll tell you what I'd do is put a banker in, but I would also not be anywhere near the top 10, so am I the right guy to ask? Probably not.
Well, see, the problem is, if you go out and you try and put a banker in, you bring the tyres up to temperature, just temperature and pressure too quickly. I had quite an extended chat with Matt Dench about tyres. You just cannot take anything out of them. And that's what he did in qualifying last week. That's what he was about in the race. Was if you take anything out of them, and we've already talked about how important tyres are going to be. Whoa, look at the times. Look at the times. Carmichael's being pipped. Can't take too much out of them. So that says to me, for those guys to be going that quick, they know that they've only got 2 laps worth of tyres anyway. So it doesn't really matter if they prep their tyres properly. They're going hard early because they don't have any other choice.
Ross Rizzo with a 126.445 now in P1. Lachlan Capel with a 126.640. Roll Carmichael still in 3rd position. Track temperature's increased about 4 degrees. It's up to 26 degrees now from where we started earlier in the day.
It doesn't sound like a lot, but it will certainly be making a difference to these drivers out there. But they won't know any different. They went out there earlier on in Q1 when the track was a little bit cooler. This is just how it is for the likes of Ross Rizzo, who currently leads the way, and Andre Youssef, who we pick up coming out of the last corner down the undulating front straight as Sebastian Flock puts himself up inside the top 10. Youssef goes into 10th. I'm looking out for Woods, pole sitter in both rounds so far. Won both rounds so far. Absolutely the man to beat in round 2. Swept absolutely everything in that round. What's he got up his sleeve in the Door Esports BMW? A 26.075 to put himself right up to the top. Provisional pole for Damon Woods.
Ross Rizzo now is a 126.2 in P2 with Matthew Dench has now got himself on the leaderboard with a 126.45. Dylan O'Shea with a 126.4. Lachlan Capel with a 1.
Island! Chris Island's out. He'll be done with qualifying. He just had a wild ride. See that? He went through turn 1 and straight off on the grass on the outside of turn 1. And that's cut him straight across. Nearly took somebody with him. Nearly
Mitch
took somebody with him.
Behind Mitch McLeod. Getting some slipstream.
This is going to be crazy. Just watch this.
It's exactly what I talked about.
Corner.
You run wide in turn 1, and you cannot stop that car on the grass before turn 2 comes up in a hurry. Watch for that on lap 1. Ireland might get it back to the pits, and then he'll be able to go back out again. But it's going to take a lot of time out of his session, and yeah, he's going to struggle to put in a representative lap, I would assume. On board from Visor Cam.
That's just no grip. There's no grip. That's all the
Down
downfall.
himself too wide. Yep.
Well,
Did well to miss the marshals.
A very, very visible effect. I don't think you're going to get a better shot, ladies and gentlemen, of what dirty air is, what it looks like, and what it does to the car. Because look at how close he was behind that Mitch McLeod Mercedes. He had no choice. He couldn't do anything about that. He just went in there. There was no grip.
And he has stopped on the racetrack now. And we'll turn back to pit lane. He's 7th at the moment. Let's see how far he falls from there as he can take no further part in the session. So how much of an impact will that have on Christopher Ireland as Wayne Hewitt pops up to P3?
Remember Riley Bilson? We talked about Riley Bilson on the first lap of qualifying. He come through after his outlap, drove through the pit lane. So that's going to void both of his laps. So he won't get either of those laps as valid times. Still hasn't set a representative lap time. So he's running out of time. Andre Yusuf is in the grass on the run down to out of Stoner. So there's a ton of guys. Remember what we were just talking about with there's such a limited time to get these laps in. The pressure is high. And I think the biggest factor that we're looking at right now is these guys putting pressure on themselves because they're cracking. They are absolutely cracking. And these guys, Riley Bilson has talent. The guy has raw talent, has the ability to set the fastest single lap times in a session. If there was a driver that I was going to say, who's going to set your fastest lap of the day? Riley Bilson. If there was a driver I was going to ask, who do you think is going to be your best driver over a race distance? I shift away from him. He's one of those guys who can put a hot lap in, can't do a race distance. That's the change I need to see out of him.
Oh, harsh call.
Well, I mean, you know, it's harsh, but I say that because I want him to improve. I'm not sitting here going, I think this guy's just a hot shot. I don't like the guy. Riley's actually a nice kid. He's young. He's got a little bit of a head, a little bit of an ego about him. But who doesn't at that age? He's a bit of a teenager, stereotypical. He's got talent, and I'd love to see him take that talent somewhere, but he's got to be able to put consistent results together. He does that, he will be one of Australia's next top drivers in iRacing.
Currently, he's last. He's to find an improvement. Simon Pizzomo
A40
comes across the line. That's not representative for him. 5 seconds off. Might have been an outlap. Might have been a mistake. 20th. He'll want to be a little bit further up there, but self-proclaimed doesn't love the GT3s quite as much as some of the other race cars on the service. 8th for Jason Bentz. Sebastian Flock for Evolution Racing Team. But what can he do? I'd expect to see him a little further up than 15th. He's also one of the very talented drivers you'd expect to be running for the top 10. Problem is, there's about 25 extremely talented drivers who I'd put in the top 10 any given day of the week. So it's an over quota of talent out here.
We've seen 8 drivers from the final session all make the top 10, which has pushed Rob Carmichael back to 9th. One thing we can't forget with a night like tonight, it's Phillip Island. We're full of Australian and New Zealand sim racers. A lot of people have been to Phillip Island. There'll be a handful of these guys that have driven around here. If you want some bragging rights, it's to win around Phillip Island. These guys are certainly pushing themselves. Wayne Hewitt's off.
Himself off and requesting a tow. He was 3rd. He's just been demoted to 4th. Capel moves himself up to 2nd with a phenomenal lap. 26.212. It's still just under 2/10 shy of Woods. Ross Rizzo goes to the top. A 25.9. Fastest we've seen all week.
A checkered flag. I think the checkered flag was just shown as well. So, yeah. So even though there's 9 minutes left in the session time, ladies and gents, that's just the available time to get through the session. That's actually not a marker of exactly how long. All of the drivers, I believe, get 10 minutes in order to set their times. It's a little bit of time in between the sessions to clear the track, reset the track. So the grip levels come up. That's the thing that I'm noting, the rubber level laid down on the track. That's why you're seeing a little bit of improvement in tyres and tyre temperatures there. So, but I would have expected peak performance to have actually gone out of these tyres. They've had to reset their tyres, cool them off and go again.
So Damon Woods isn't going to be on pole position. He's going slow. The checkered flag's out. He can't improve. Ross Rizzo's pushing on. He's already on provisional pole, but he wants to put it beyond doubt. as Wayne Stewart gets demoted to 5th place now. I think Matthew Dent was the one that popped up to 4th there to demote him.
Yes.
As Flock moves up to 11th. Still just outside the 10, looking in.
26.39 for Dench.
Picking up Riley Bilson, coming out of 11.
No way. The Dench is not a flyer either.
Through 12, out of the last corner for Bilson. Open it up as much as you can, but stay away from that grass that approaches very quickly on the exit of that corner. Can Bilson get himself out of last? He can't. 36.437 is a long way off, and Bilson's got a lot of work to do for 9.5 Simsport.
Well,
Eddie Economos?
That's not what I would expect out of Riley Bilson. Economos is in. There's a few.
Yep.
I think everyone's now actually accepted that checkered flag. So I think everyone's actually done in terms of setting their laps. But Damon Wood's pipped. I mean,
Ross Rizzo.
Confidence. Ross Rizzo has just been putting some reasonable performances together of late. I've yet to see him actually. It's been a fair while since I've seen him around, but that's on me. That's not necessarily on him. I know he's been racing a lot of the GT3s, and I know that he's exceptionally comfortable in that Lamborghini. If you go back maybe 6 months ago, was a big fan of the Ferrari. That's where he felt a lot more comfortable. Nah, Lamborghini these days.
That's our first pole for Lamborghini in the series as well.
And for Trans-Tasman Racing, he goes out there tonight. You can't keep that team down for long. If there's a competition in Australian sim racing, Trans-Tasman Racing will be in it, and they will be competing at the front. And we see it again through the hands of Rizzo. Look, Mitchison puts himself up into 9th for Race on Oz. That's a solid effort for Mitchison and the BMW.
He's been doing well the
hang
last
on.
race.
Hang on. I think Bilson's about to receive himself the ire of the stewards. If he gets a lap time here, it won't count.
So what's happened here is Bilson has gone past the checkered flag twice. He set a 26.949, which puts him 19th on the grid, but he'd already crossed the line before he started that lap after the checkered had been displayed, so it should not count. Stewards are going to have to figure out how to resolve that. An end-of-line penalty, I think, would be the perfect solution, given that's where he would have been lining up anyway.
Well, I mean, yeah, but they can't issue that. The way that the simulated look, if this is one of the difficulties of real world versus racing, is that in real world, if there's a qualifying infringement, you could just change the positions of where everyone's gridded up, right? You can't do that within a sim. It's not as easy as going back 5 seconds, or you move back to where that lap was. I think they'll make him start from the pit lane.
That is an option. There is an EOL option in iRacing, but I'm not sure if it can be implemented on a road course.
Yes, it can. The problem is it depends how long they've got. So the consistent option, it's not a good call. It's not an easy call to make. If they do a full formation lap, which they actually are by that pace truck, there will be an opportunity to send into the rear.
There you go. He's been told to start from pit lane. So Bilson penalises himself quite heavily there with that mistake. But if there's some chaos in the opening lap and a safety car, might not be the worst place to start. Let's take a look at our qualifying results and also how they line up on the grid for this race. Ross Rizzo takes pole position, denies Damon Woods the three-peat, and they share the front row. Lachlan Capel for Evolution Racing Team and Team PGZ's Matthew Dent on row 2. Wayne Stewart and Dawn O'Shea share the third row. Chris Ireland's had a better go of it in terms of getting through without chaos so far. He's starting 7th. We'll be hoping for a clean race. Jason Bentz from 8th. Luke Mitchison and Rob Carmichael on row 5. And Sebastian Flock, Zach Rattray White for Evolution Racing Team and Kuala Katai Contour Racing share row 6. Scott.
Yeah, moving on to Kenny Konomas, who had some late pace on in that session. Sebastian Varnell was a part of the second qualifying group and finds himself at 14th. Mitch McLeod, we saw that huge moment with Christopher Island during qualifying. Luckily got away with that one, set of representative lap time. Adam Willison's there as well. Brody Shepard and Marlon McCullen. Riley Bilson listed in 19th, will be starting from the rear and has actually been assigned to the rear of the field. So we'll start 40th on the grid as they roll out the last corner. Andre Youssef, Simon Mazzomo, Jared Knight, Jamie McKnight, and Matt Bailey round out your top 24.
Riley and Race Control were having about a spirited debate about what penalty issues we were up here in the booth. Lee Williamson and Alistair Bales, 25th and 26th. Luke Brown, Russ Green, Robbie Bradbury, Stephen Bartholomew round out the top 30. You got Seth Brown, Cameron Edwards, Aaron Obastella, Fitzroy Beaumont. Felt like he was a lot further up than that last round. Look for him to come through. Chris Palat and Tyson Hammer, 35th and 36th. There's only a handful more cars in the field. Chu Kang in 37th, Amar Sharma in 38th. Jackson Austin and Luke D. Berardino round out our 40 for tonight. 40 cars around a 4.4 kilometre Phillip Island circuit, which holds the fastest average speed in the country. At least for the outright lap record it does. About just north of 195 kilometres is the average speed for the outright lap record, which is a 124 or so set in a custom-built race car. But these GT3s in iRacing have found a couple extra seconds, so their average speed won't be too far off. What are we expecting on this opening lap here, Peter?
What are we expecting? Well, we're expecting very interesting into Doohan and then into Southern Loop. Let's hope we don't see another repeat of anyone running wide under the inside, because when you've got 40 plus cars here, there isn't going to be anywhere to go like we saw in qualifying. The last two races, everyone's been very good off the start. We've had a couple of little incidents, but the majority of the pack has kept their position, stayed in their lane. They've let things warm up. Obviously, that's the balance you've got to make on the start of one of these races. Do you want to push and sneak one in and try and grab a couple of spots while people are vulnerable, or do you look after your car? So a lot of these guys know this track very well, so I think we'll probably see a bit of aggression in the opening laps. Maybe one or two or three wide into Doohan. I think we'll see that.
I was going to say, the last opportunity we've really got before this gets underway to talk strategy, I know that there was a change to the fuel numbers. So,
on
again...
to 49% fuel from 47,
yeah.
or 49% fuel.
Let's talk through that a little bit. So the fans watching along at home, you'll be sitting there and going, well, a race car, it's always got the same size fuel tank. Well, benefits of technology. We can actually limit the maximum size of a fuel tank. And when you run a fixed setup, not like we're actually doing here, these drivers bring their own setups, they all do their own tinkering. You can tinker with the amount that the drivers start with and then what the maximum number is that they fill up to. After last round, there was an increase in the fuel number, Pete?
There was a little increase, so it was 40 up to 49%. Which opened the door just a little bit more, opened the door a little bit for people to go a little longer if they want to. We all saw the majority of the drivers obviously don't change tyres, because you can't do tyres by the time you take enough fuel to get to the finish. But we're getting ready, the pace cars in, so we're about to get a good start on this race.
Coming through turn 12, 40 cars lined up in formation. Ross Rizzo on the right-hand side. He's got the inside line for turn 1. It's going to be a long drag race down to Doohan. How many cars can we fit wide on this Phillip Island main straight, the Gardner straight? Green flag flies. Rizzo gets away well. Woods does not. He's already making contact with Lachlan Cable, who tried to squeeze up the inside. There wasn't room for him. And Woods defends Dench, who has to try and go the long way around at turn 1. Huge dive behind them from Dylan O'Shea. Makes contact with Cable, who's had a rough start, and we've got one off already. Wayne Hewitt had a huge crash and collision with the tyre bundle on the right-hand side.
And remember that he towed out of the tail end of qualifying, but there was contact that caused that one, so that's going to get investigated. Would not surprise me if we see a safety car very, very early on here. Couple things of note as well. Multiple drivers have said to me that they're running a lower wing setting during qualifying, but they weren't able to put consistent laps together with that lower wing setting. You may actually see a lot of shuffling in these early phases of the race, because drivers have swapped out what their race pace looks like compared to their qualifying pace. Could be interesting to keep an eye on.
There's a lot of drivers struggling on cold tyres at the moment as they file through Hayshed at upwards of 215 kilometres an hour side by side for a few drivers. Mazomo, one of them on the outside of Brodie Shepherd, who was 3 wide back at Miller Corner. He's had an adventurous opening lap. But mostly, just 3 more corners to go, mostly pretty clean. Only one car I've seen off the road, which was Hewitt in spectacular fashion. But for Ross Rizzo out front, it has been silky smooth and clear sailing. He will lead the opening lap, but the advantage he built up from that fantastic jump is slowly starting to get reeled back in by Damon Woods. It's a Lamborghini fighting a BMW, followed by a Ferrari up at the front of the field. Side by side, Mitch McLeod on the outside. No fear of McLeod as he tips it in, but Farndale wins out in that little duo.
Well, everybody.
Interesting to note as well what Wayne Hewitt does here, because what's the opening pit window here?
Is it Christopher Ireland just got a touch coming out of Southern Loop. Huge tank slapper as a result, goes off and drops down the order. Oh, not again for Ireland. Early drama. This time it wasn't his fault, but he's going to have to fight back just like he did in round number 2.
Pit window will be 16 to 18. Thanks, Scott.
Okay, so effectively we've got through to from 16 minutes into the race all the way through to about 29 minutes into the race is their maximum fuel distance. So that's actually quite a wide window, and Ireland's actually just questioning this one with race control. So
that was Mitchison sneaking, trying to sneak up the inside. The door was half ajar, but it'll be interesting to see how race control call that one from the steward's box. Side by side across Lukey Heights. Please don't try that again. Luke Brown involved there, hanging on in the busy Bins Racing Ferrari. And
Luke's another new driver tonight, so Luke's just slotted into P25 with let Bailey up on the inside. But that was nice too wide across Lukey Heights. It's always scary on about lap 2 as Luke Ardino has come off. Exiting MG.
Sharma may be involved in that. Look back up the front though, because the top 2 are really starting to close up. Damon Woods has had a good run through the first couple of corners. And Ross Rizzo is going to need to start looking in his mirrors shortly. Someone's off on the outside of Southern Loop. Can we pick him up? He's tumbling down the order. It's Riley Bilson.
Riley Bilson.
Was it Riley Bilson? It was Brody Shepherd, I thought.
Oh, Brody Shepherd. It is Brody Shepherd, car 36, sorry. Putting back into 36.
Yeah, no, it would have been remarkable if that was Bilson, considering he started last and was being passed by a dozen cars while stopped in the grass there.
He's that's what seconds, so he's already grabbed himself 7 or 8 spots, so he's doing reasonable.
Yeah.
It's actually underneath Fitzroy Beaumont at the moment, so keep an eye on that. That will be interesting to see where Bilson gets to.
It worried me because I went, oh, if that's him up there, he's that far back, but I'm sorry for the mistake. But we see Ross Rizzo, he's new to be seen leading one of these races. We've seen Woods, Dench, Mitchelson fighting the battles over the last couple, and here we got here's Riley Bilson as he goes into MG.
Yeah, he's got Beaumont ahead, then Tyson Hammer, Edwards, and basically the whole field line is turned at this point back here in the battle for 30th onwards. You can see as they all came over Lukey Heights, so the cars scattering every which way, trying to find some clean air to break in and not pummel into the back of that car in front of them. It's Beaumont now trying the side draft down the main straight with Tyson Hammer, who's on the inside, and Beaumont is going to try to hang it on the outside of turn 1, doing corner. Just backs out of it and allows Hammer to move across in front, use all of the racetrack there. And they're holding it very tight through Southern Loop, not wanting to let anyone sneak up the inside of them like Ireland did with Mitchison. But Beaumont again with hit striking range through the very fast Stoner corner, which is not really a corner in these cars. It's easily flat out. The trouble Beaumont's got now is if he keeps going to the outside, that's going to happen. Hello, Riley Bilson.
Hang on. Something's just happened between Jason Bentz and Dylan Shane 5th and 6th because they've swapped spots, and I get the feeling Bentz wasn't happy with it. So even though he's come away with the spot, I have a feeling that that Dylan Shane might have been a touch aggressive there. That might have happened down into turn 4. Yeah. So
yeah, O'Shea tried to clear himself across the nose of Jason Bentz, or just ran it a little bit wide by accident, and they made contact. Here's the replay. So O'Shea's on the inside, heading into Miller Corner after he goes the long way around. Christopher Ireland, black flags in the meantime.
That'll be lap 1, turn 1. So what would have escorted Wayne Hewitt off?
There. O'Shea just moves across, and Bentz can't do anything about that. And O'Shea moves down the order. So Ireland, unfortunately, gets a black flag and then sees Mitchison given a black flag for the incident that turned him off the road. So he was in the action plenty early on. Was Ireland?
Yeah. That's the one. So he's picked up 2 on that opening lap. That's the opening couple lap there.
Unlucky. But Rizzo's done a good job here to equalise with Damon Woods. The last time by, he was actually a tenth quicker in that Lamborghini for TTR. So he's doing a phenomenal job using that clean air, which is worth a lot on a high-speed track like this, and cars that are built on having plenty of downforce available to them. Being able to pick your line and not have to worry about that dirty air in front is vital. But these top 4 cars are pretty much hanging with each other. Matthew Dench just back there in third for Team PGZ, and Lachlan Capel. Scott, we saw Dench hanging with Woods for most of the first stint in round 2, but then had that little incident and fell off the back. Still managed to finish in second. He'll be hoping for a smoother run tonight, maybe hang in there to have a shot at victory towards the end.
Well, I'm actually thinking about what he was talking about in terms of his tyre strategy as well. Because last time out at Road America, another quite heavy tyre wear track as well. Very similar sort of layout, quite similar, I would say, to Phillip Island in the way that the tyres sort of wear their tyres, albeit one's clockwise and one's anti-clockwise. So they're going to wear the opposite side tyre this time. But I have a feeling he's maybe hanging back a little bit, making sure that he's getting clear out of the front end of that thing. I think he's trying to hang on to tyres yet again. He's actually closed in quite a lot this time. So I think he's just trying to bring the tyres in ever so steadily. I think it was about 5 or 6 laps he sort of sat back off the rear bumper of Damon Woods last time and then started to press up. So 6 laps in now. That seems about the marker for that Dench.
Dylan O'Shea is about to be in the thick of the action again because he's got Sebastian Flock ranging up behind him, a tenth and a half quicker last time by than both O'Shea and Bentz, who's just off in the distance. Looking back from the 9.5 SimSport rear bumper at the Evolution Racing Team car, looking for a way by.
Matty Dench doesn't want to take it too easy because there's a couple of fast guys coming up behind him. But the thing we have noticed in the last 2 races, and I'm sorry to talk tyres again, but we have seen tyres going off. We've seen incidents in the last couple of laps of every race. We've seen drivers pushing each other, we've seen drivers pushing themselves, and we've certainly seen cars a little bit skittish towards the end of the race. So that's something these guys will be keeping in mind. The race distances, now they're getting used to what happens over the full race distance, so they're getting a bit better an idea. Maybe they're looking after things a little bit better.
Where did Mitchelson pit out of? Because that's him serving his drive penalty. Was that ninth?
Yeah.
Ninth, and he's back to 30. I think he's going to be up to about 34th after he serves this one. That's a pill to swallow.
Let's see if there's any team morders here between the 2 Pursuit Sim Racing Ferraris. Yes, there is the very quick answer. Rob Carmichael just lifts off and allows Sebastian Vandel to run around as outside at Stoner. That was the position change for 8th place.
Now, remember in race 1 at Bathurst, Ryan, we saw 3 Pursuit Sim Racing cars, I'm pretty sure, have an incident at the last lap. Wasn't their fault. There was another car that spun on the last turn going onto the start-finish straight, and I'm pretty sure 3 of those guys had an incident, so exciting stuff.
In front of him, Jason Bentz is about to have his hands full, looking like he's going to be the cork in the bottle. He was 2 tenths slower last time by than Dylan O'Shea and the chasing Sebastian Flock. We've already seen drama between these two. O'Shea tried to pass Bentz. He basically had it done. Then they made contact and O'Shea ended up off the road. Can he get it done cleanly this time? He's got a great slipstream down the Gardner straight. Is he going to be close enough to throw it up the inside at turn 1? Probably not. But he's got to set himself up now. Have a clean run through this first corner where he's been very conservative. Actually dropped a bit of time.
He's saving. He's saving in a massive... So there's 2 theories around what the difference is between the Ferrari and the BMW here. This could be a setup tweak whereby a lot more...
Oh, hang on. Cut off. We've got a change in the lead.
Oh, hang on a second. Inside, overcooks it. Rizzo goes for the crossover. Gets the lead back. The battle is on at the front, and look at Dench. Suddenly, he is on the rear bumper of the battle for the top spot. It was a great exit out of Southern Loop that set it up for Damon Woods. Rizzo didn't defend, but just overcooked it as Pursuit Sim Racing. Seth Brown is off the road coming out of turn 2. So that signals the intention. Woods wants to get to the front.
Well, I'm just starting to wonder, is Matt Dench is just sort of sitting here going, how about it, boys? Go on, fight each other. You could do that some more. I'll just sit here and I'll wait. I think Capel's chilling. The other thing is, so going back to what we're going to talk about at the start of the lap, there's 2 schools of thought around here. where are all your overtaking opportunities? They're on the long straights. That means you run a lower wing angle. You typically see something like that Bathurst. The problem you've got here, though, is that all the high downforce corners you're going to suffer. But if you're sticking wing, you can't stick extra front splitter on these cars. You can only stick rear wing angle. So that makes the car actually a little bit more understeery, but gives you better traction.
Now, this is interesting. Remember, Carmichael let Vandel sort of go, lift it off. Well, they've switched around again. Carmichael's ahead of Vandel, who's lost it on the brakes. McLeod goes through. Vandel's off the road.
He's around.
Rattray White almost followed him off there. And Adam Willison's going to try to capitalise. Long recovery back to the racing surface for Vandel. Shepherd, luckily all by himself, and doesn't clean anyone else up. But there's an aggressive battle happening right now between Rattray White, Willison, and Simon Mizomo buying himself into the fight. Woods has got to the lead. It's all kicking off at the moment. Everything has suddenly happened at once. Here on lap 9, Woods has got to the front. He's jumped ahead of Rizzo. And the Super G Auto replay is going to tell us one of the tales. So Woods with the exit from Siberia. Rizzo just lost it by himself, got a slide on. And then Woods went for the extremely high speed overtake through Hayshed.
Let alone, think about, from Matthew Dench's perspective, trying to let Ross Rizzo feed himself back in there, because he had an overtaking opportunity all of his own there, Matthew Dench, and elected not to take it. Again, I think this is just him saying, have at it, boys, go for it. The Lamborghini around here will struggle with its tyres. We saw that last time out for Road America. Cooked the rears. That was its bigger issue, and was struggling late on in the piece. So in terms of setups, how are they going to compromise that? More wing angle will certainly help, but I don't know how well he's going to hang on to those. And then wing angle in terms of how do you set yourself up for the faster corners. We saw it from Dylan Shea. I think that was actually fuel saving though, guys. So I think there are some drivers that are playing a little bit of fuel gaming, let alone you're slower into the first corner, you'll wear your front tyres a little bit less. Oh, Shea's just dived it down the inside of Benson Siberia. That's the send of the century.
He gets it done cleanly this time, finally gets himself ahead of Bentz. He was stuck behind him for a good couple of laps there after he'd caught him again. Here's the replay. Did Bentz make a mistake, or did this really come from nowhere from Dylan O'Shea? Wow, that move.
He wasn't expecting it. He was not expecting that whatsoever. That's just, what's the word? A little bit of an
opportunistic.
I wouldn't say opportunistic. I think that's Bentz just not covering it. I don't think he expected the threat. He just was not ready for that move to be thrown. So that's bravery from Dylan O'Shea. I will say that about Dylan O'Shea. One of his biggest attributes is he is a very aggressive driver. He will go for an opportunity, and he's got the competition napping on that occasion.
See, the problem there is Bentz could have turned down, and O'Shea would have been penalised because he didn't get to the B-pillar until they were halfway through the corner. It's a dive, to be sure, but sometimes that aggression certainly pays off. We pick up this battle with Simon Mizomo and Rattray White. Willison was holding them up just a lap ago, but he's now starting to open that gap back up. And Rattray White's in a Lamborghini. I wonder if we're starting to see the Lamborghinis struggling in unison, because Ross Rizzo sort of feels the same way up the front for him, doesn't it? That he's falling off as Vandel's falling off the road again at turn 2.
Same place as last time.
He's clearly got something he likes down in that gravel trap out there.
Well, it's a nice view over the Bass Strait. There's a couple of boats out there, aren't there? I'm not quite sure who's on the boats today.
Sebastian Vandel, if you're listening, don't take your camera with you when you go racing, mate. Save that for after.
Fairy penguins.
We pick up Wayne Hewitt, who's managed to keep going in this race after we thought he'd be done from that lap 1 collision. So good on him for sticking at it. Now, Kenny Kotomos, this battle is starting to light up, and I think there's going to be a flashpoint sometime soon. Jeremy McKnight in 16th is at the moment the last car in this battle, but there's more cars looking to join it. McKnight, in front of him, he's got Yusuf, and then McMullen, Kotomos, who we're watching, Mizomo, and Rattray White, and Willison's starting to run away from them all. It's the battle for 11th place.
there's a few drivers in amongst this one, and one of the critical things about this battle pack is have a look at the different manufacturers that are in this one. There's a Mercedes, there's a BMW, there's a Lamborghini, there's a Ferrari.
Oh.
Everyone's just about in this battle pack as well. And yeah, I agree with you. This is going to get spicy, particularly because of the different attributes of all the cars in here. Some of these cars are going to have significant weak points on this track, where others have huge power strokes, power moves. You're going to see something brave.
Yeah, well, I've noticed the last 2 laps now, Rattray White is really struggling to get it rotated through the long, sweeping southern loop. So the rotation on that Lamborghini, not quite there for him. And that's where Mazzomo's finding a lot of time at the moment, but still not finding enough to get close enough for an overtake. Looking at Willison in the simrigs.com DPR Porsche, who's just up the road. He was 0.3 quicker last lap. Luke Mitchison's gone off, along with one of the Vermilion Motorsport car, and somewhere else on the racetrack, Bence is off the road. That's down at MG. Wait, things have been happening in threes in this race. Where's the third car that's gone off?
Oh, I was about to say, I think they might both be at MG. This might be a...
well, no, because Mitchison had a penalty, so he wouldn't be anywhere near Bence. He'd think not anyway. Bence by himself just... Ooh, wow, that was close for Sebastian Flock. Just snuck through. And I dare say maybe contact for Mitchison at Siberia with the Vermilion car that I think was involved
Bence
there.
is in for his pit stop.
And Bence decides to pit, as you rightly say there, Peter, who we see now Rizzo is really starting to fall away from the back of Damon Woods. Battles on with Hammer. Scott, where do we look? There's action everywhere.
Well, that's the benefit of 40 cars out on track, isn't it? You've got something to look at just about every. The critical thing that we're seeing a little bit different out of this race that we have.
In unison, Ireland and Hammer go for a loop coming out of Southern Loop.
That is curse.
Well, track temp has actually started to decline a little bit more. Sim time at the moment is 10 a.m. At Phillip Island, and it is 15th of November. So it is. So benefits of iRacing, you can set whatever time you want within the sim. So you can tell it basically, we want it to be this date, we want it to be this time. You know, so this is middle of summer, because there's actually quite a few tracks in the sim that actually aren't open through the middle of winter. So you can only set spring and summertime racing action. So you will actually go to some tracks whereby it's completely opposite end of the year.
Mick Mullen is pitted from 13th place. He removes himself from that big train of cars we've been keeping our eye on, and this might not be a bad call. Get himself some clean air, might be able to undercut these guys just through virtue of being by himself. Ross Rizzo, he's under all sorts of pressure here from Matthew Dent, and that's a lapped car in front of them. But Aaron Obersteller, who I think was that car involved in the incident we saw Mitchison sideways in, and Obersteller is struggling to keep the car straight. Is he going to dive out the way of Rizzo? He hasn't yet.
Woods checking out.
Yeah, Woods is starting to open the gap, and that's probably why Matthew Dent is looking to get a hurry up here, because he doesn't want to lose touch with that BMW out front. Obersteller continues to hold back. These lead lap cars, blue flags, do exist on the road courses in iRacing, but at the moment he's not heeding them, and Rizzo's going to start to get very frustrated here. He's lost ground now through turn 11. He's decided to pit. That might have been the smart option there. Well, Dent will be happy with it, though. I don't think Dent will be annoyed by that.
No, I think Dent will be absolutely happy. I don't think that was in Ross Rizzo's game plan at all. I think that's completely something separate. So my concern is that Ross Rizzo might compromise himself. Particularly, I'm just having a look at the pit stop times. The transition times from end to end seem to be in about the mid to high 30s at the moment for the couple of drivers that we have seen pit of recent note. So that's going to pop him out.
Oh no! Obersteller's taken out Matthew Dench.
Oh.
Oh yeah, do not like to see that. That will obviously be looked at by race control. Dench got a run coming out of turn 2. Almost got cleaned out by Mitch McLeod. He had a run coming out of turn 2, was trying to get on the throttle as early as he could, but Obersteller was just hanging on around that outside, and eventually, well, this will tell you what happened. They just run into each other.
He's come a bit across to the left. He could have hung out to the right a little bit more for him.
He shouldn't have been there. He was in front for about a lap. He definitely should have been out of the way well before then, but... So that moves Matthew Dench back down to 6th position and 15 seconds behind Damon Woods.
He'll have no choice there as well. Overstella's still going. I think he's just got a tow. This might trigger a safety car, actually. He's still on the infield. He's in a really compromised location because he's on the top of the crest here. So he's got no good spot to feed in. There's about 3 cars. Once this next car goes, there's a little bit of a gap, and then there's 2 more cars behind him.
That's not a pretty rejoin. 90 degrees to the racetrack.
Place on the track where there was actually a gap. So it's the perfect time for him to try and rejoin that.
Oh, luckily there was a gap in the traffic. Yes, Peter, Dench is in. So, I like this call. Is that Vindel? No, it's Brown, his teammate. Pursuit Sim Racing and Turn 2 have not been a good mix tonight.
The Pursuit Sim Racing Southern Loop, I think it'll be after tonight's session.
I like that.
Racing gravel trap, actually.
So Dench comes out of pit lane. I like that call. It allows the car to come to a stop and the tyres cool off a little bit because they would have become a little bit overheated through that spin cycle. And he's rejoined right behind Brody Shepherd. And he's almost run into Brody Shepherd. But we're watching Zach Ratchet. No, we're not. Here we go. So here's that battle. So Shepherd is out on the track. His tyres will be up to pressure. Dench is just bringing them back now. It won't take long. He didn't change tyres in the pit stop. There's no reason to do that in a 45-minute race.
And he's got around him quite easily. A little bit cool. That little bit of cool down for your tyres seems to be working the last couple of races as well. But Matty Dench has got the bit between his teeth. He wants to get some positions back. He's right up there in the championship, and that incident's knocked him right back tonight.
Yeah, that will be extremely frustrating for him. I expect to see a black flag for Overstella potentially soon, as we see Jared Knight's been given a black flag. Ooh, Jemmy McKnight's off the road. That's down at MG. Is that with one of the Pursuit Sim Racing cars coming together with the Synergy Sim Racing? Yes, sorry, Miller.
Oh, what's...
How'd they get there? Someone up the inside. There we go. So McKnight has just been driven into from behind. Just a little bit slower through the mid-corner than
Pilson?
The Pursuit car was expecting, and McKnight has gone around. Pilson sneaks through.
I was about to say, Pilson just arrived at the scene at the wrong moment. that's just unlucky. Bad timing.
Cameron Edwards has gone for a spin. He was 15th at the start of the lap. Now he's not. Here's a move coming. Miller. Oh, the door shut very quickly from that angle. It looked like Stephen Bartholomew in the all-black Lamborghini, shutting it firmly across the nose of Jackson Austin. And Fitzroy Beaumont back here as well.
Matthew Dench's come back in P23 after that, behind Luke Mitchelson. He's currently racing with, and Sebastian Flock's there as well.
Lachlan Capel has pitted. He was second. He's been promoted up the order by the virtue of early pit stops and Dench's drama in front of him. We'll see where Capel rejoins compared to Ross Rizzo as Mitch McLeod has pitted. Has he crashed coming into pit lane? Was that what we just saw there?
I think that was just a deep dive into the lane, to be perfectly honest with you. Overstella's just been... yeah, actually, he might have. Because he actually just had... That was a huge pop out of damage, and I did know he actually had what they call a meatball flag, a black flag with an orange circle in the middle of it. So was it... Good eyes. Good eyes.
He's hit the entry wall for pit lane.
There's not going to be any good angles here. This is a really difficult
spot. He's just locked the rears.
No, he's grabbed the grass on the outside, right there. As he's hit the brakes, he's got 2 tyres in the grass. That's why he goes around. And he blocks pit entry for a moment. Luckily, he got out of the way before that next car came along. I think that was Ratchway White.
He was well in the top 8 before that too.
Yes. I mentioned look out for Capel, where he rejoins compared to Rizzo. The answer was a few seconds behind him. So Rizzo's been able to maintain an advantage over Capel here.
Oh, Damon Woods has got a speeding on pit lane penalty.
Huge. Woods is going to have to stay in his pit box for, 40
40
seconds?
seconds. Actually, it might be an unsafe entry. It could be either. He was on the grass. He went deep into the pit lane entry. Speeding. It's definitely speeding. Definitely speeding.
He's on his box as well.
My word! There's two drivers right now who have not come to grief out of our top 5, and one of them had moments with a lap car. Is Capel's the only one who's run a clean race up there?
He put 2 wheels off and couldn't slow the car up.
So Ross Rizzo is going to inherit the net race lead once those 4 cars that have yet to stop make their pit stop. Rob Carmichael, Adam Willison, Kenny Cotamos, and Robbie Bradbury, the 4 still out on the racetrack in front of the leaders that haven't pitted. So Rizzo's net lead is about 5 seconds over Lachlan Capel.
We should see everyone who hasn't pitted in probably this lap. They've gone a little bit further than I thought, but
Woods just leaves his box now, and he is
20.
outside of the 20.
Yeah. That's got implications. Well, here would be the perfect opportunity for Matt Dench to go through and grab a bunch of points. Back on him. Where is Dench in relation to this? Because that's now critical. Dench is up into 10th at the moment, currently. So that's critical. So he's 10 spots ahead. That could nearly be enough to hand him a series lead. This is going to be tight now. The points implications are massive.
That'll be about 6th or 5th once the rest of the drivers pit. And I don't think all of those drivers that have yet to pit will be behind Woods. He's 55 seconds off the race lead, which is Cotamos. Williamson is off the road. Carmichael has dived to pit lane. Willison has followed him. Cotamos has kept on going for Vermilion Motorsports. So he inherits the race lead. Oh, this race.
points after 2 rounds were Damon Woods in first, 102. Matthew Dench in second with 93. Luke Mitchelson third and 8 with 81 points.
So he's got to find 10 to get lead on his own right, 9 for a tie.
The top 3 in the championship have had shockers. Woods has had a speeding penalty. Dench got turned by a lapped car. Mitchelson turned himself around multiple times. We're not sure how either of them happened. Capel in 5th is on for a good point, so we don't have Tal Sereno in the field tonight. He was 4th coming into this.
Oh, word. Well, yeah, I mean, have a look at Capel's Road America as well. That was a phenomenal drive. Yeah, I mean, the other side of this is that don't forget that Capel was so strong on those tyres late in the piece, and he was raving on about the setup as well. Could there be another little bit of setup magic that comes Capel's way? His tyres might be the best of the group. I'm expecting the Lamborghini to struggle late from Ross Rizzo. We've already seen troubles from the rear end of that car, and he was starting to fall away from them. Could the Mercedes just hang on to its tyres better?
Yeah, well, it's a very smooth race car to drive, this Mercedes. And the Lamborghini, not so much.
He did mention last race he just looked after the tyres a little bit for the first couple of laps and during the stint and pushed at the end.
And the transition times on pit lane run as well, 2 seconds in favour of Ross Rizzo. You don't save fuel whilst you're leading. There is no way that he can save fuel whilst he's leading. So Capel wasn't quite in their draft, but I would estimate that Damon Woods is likely. Woods and Dench should have theoretically been quicker on pit lane.
So
take 40 seconds off of what's the name? Off of where's. Man, everything's just gone. My brain's gone. My brain's done. It's Friday night.
So everyone's pitted. Mostly everyone's pitted. At least the leading group have shaken out. Rizzo's lead is 4.2 seconds. It's down to 3.9 already on this lap, as that's a late move into turn 1 from Bilson. So Rizzo leads by about 4 seconds from Capel. Dylan O'Shea, Mr. Aggressive and excitement, is up to 3rd. He started 6th, but he's been having some... My brain stopped working as well. He's been having an incredibly exciting race, so he's inherited P3, and then 5 seconds behind him is where you find Matthew Dench, and Sebastian Flock rounds out the top 5.
Well, I mean, now that issue from Bentz losing the rear end of that car looks silly, because he's now thrown away what he would have had him inside the top 5, deep inside the top 5. Dench is 5 seconds back from Dylan O'Shea. I think there's a pace advantage there on the side of Matthew Dench. Late, he may start to reel in Dylan O'Shea. So don't lock Dylan O'Shea into a podium yet. Just think about that one.
Choi Kang's gone off the road. We could still have a late safety car that bunches the whole field up again.
Oh, don't you dare. Don't you dare threaten fantastic action like that. Oh, my word.
And just in your defence, boys, I think Dylan O'Shea's just had a solid race, and we haven't actually had a lot to say about him. He's just been creeping up to put himself in the third position, the quiet achiever.
Well, I just watched him. He had a big wiggle just coming right then out of the southern loop. I've just been keeping an eye on a couple of drivers up and down the field, and he was all out of shape on those rear tyres. So don't think he's home and hose. Track temps up to 33 Celsius. Those rears are going to go away, boys. I'd be starting to crank up some of that traction control if I'm in the driving chair. But then what do I know? I'm not a top-tier GT3 driver.
I think you've been watching enough of it, Scott, to know what can and can't work, and now it's getting warmer and these tyres are getting hotter and getting over-pressured and possibly a little warm. But you want to be doing whatever you can to try and keep that car straight. Ross Rizzo he's holding that 4-second gap to Capel. Dylan O'Shea and Dench are still 5 seconds between the two of them, so it's fairly stabilised at the front, but we've still got a little bit of time to go. And these last bits of the race of when we've been seeing all the action, we've been seeing the tyres really come into it.
Oh yeah, the end of round 1, the end of round 2, the action just hit a frenzy. Rob Carmichael is currently running in 6th position, and he's got Adam Willison very close company just behind him. Kenny Konomos is not too far adrift either.
Willison is up 9 spots. Simon Mazzomo's up 11. Up 12 is Matt Bailey. So there's a number of drivers that actually been making a fair bit of progress. Russ Green's another driver that's up 12. Plus 10 for Luke Brown. So a lot of drivers making a fair bit of ground. Lee Williamson's plus 7. Another plus 10 from Robbie Bradbury. So a lot of plus 10s out there. I think Riley Bilson's got them all beat. Starting from... He did effectively qualify 19th, but he's gone from 40th to... where is he at the moment? 14th?
He's just taken Benth. He's just overtaken Benth down the start-finish straight into one. Or into doing.
Yeah, good move there from Bilson. I don't think Benth's fought that one too hard. Is behind them. Luke Brown's going to be close enough for a dive here on Russ Green as well. Very deep from the Ferrari. Too deep. Way too deep. And Green says, thank you very much. I'll take my spot back. Brandt wants to fight back at Siberia, but Green awake to that and shuts off any opportunity for an overtake. The replay from Super Cheap Auto, you can just see he did well to keep it off the grass and then tried to fight back but couldn't do it. A couple more black flags or drive-through penalties have been issued as well. One to Andre Youssef, he served that about a lap ago, and Chris Pellet has copped a drive-through penalty as well. As we pick up Luke Mitchison, back in 25th. He was 3rd in the championship coming into today's race, but he's had his fair share of drama in this one. A drive-through penalty, a couple of spins, looking to find a way by Gemma McKnight for Synergy Sim Racing at the moment. He was 3/10 quicker last time by, was Mitchison. Should be just a matter of time, really. And then he's got a battle for 22nd, but not too far up the road, which is about to see a change of position. Stephen Bartholomew has allowed Jared Knight to squeeze up the outside. Knight chose the long way around. He put his car in that position and he makes it pay off. Brave stuff working out there for Jared Knight.
Just back to the championship points, we've got Capel in 5th with 51, Sebastian Flock with 49 points, and Kenny Konomos with 44. So these three are all in very good positions tonight. They're going to get a good points haul.
This battle's not done with yet. Jared Knight had to go onto the defensive line into Miller, and now he fends off. Bartholomew, who ran a little bit wide coming out of the corner there. I think that battle should be resolved now. Knight was quite a bit quicker at the previous lap as he was chasing Bartholomew down. And the gap at the front has got, Tyson Hammer off the road. That's a Southern Loop, I think.
Looks like it all, but there's someone else behind him off the road. They're fighting to get it back on the road. The last thing you want to do is have a bit of a tank slap on the grass and come back out in front of everybody through Stoner.
You want to make this worse for Tyson Hammer? He's actually just picked himself up a drive-through penalty as well for an unrelated incident.
So up front, the gap is sort of yo-yoing between 4 and 4.5 seconds. It's 4.2 at the moment. Ross Rizzo's doing enough. Last time by, the lap times were nearly identical between himself and Lachlan Capel.
Rob Carmichael at Miller. Oh, and he's got him. Round up the inside of Adam Willison, sorry.
That's a move. That's bravery from Willison. He's doing well on that Porsche. I think he's the lone Porsche actually out here tonight. It'd be interesting to see how Josh Muggleton actually been doing if he was back out here in the Porsche. It'd be interesting to see another crack from Muggleton. This is going to be a send of the century, I think, again from Willison.
Forgive me, a bit round the wrong way. Willison, nice move up the inside. What Luke tried to do a couple of laps earlier.
Yeah, that was forceful. He made sure that Carmichael left the door open. Could have turned in, could have caused a crash, but I think for the sake of both their races, smarter that Carmichael left that door ajar as he saw Willison diving in there. But he's not letting that Porsche sneak away on this lap. And Carmichael's going to get the benefit of the slipstream down the Gardner Straight here. And I wonder if he might be able to fly one back down at turn 1. Watch out for this. The Ferrari has it got the legs over the Porsche and the slipstream. It certainly does. Willison moves to defend. Carmichael knows he can't go around there. Goes for the crossover through 1. Willison is sideways. And Konomos wants to get involved. There's a bit of contact. And Carmichael checks up. Konomos has to slam on the anchors. I've got real tight very quickly through turn 2.
Only a couple of laps left in tonight's race. Coming to the end.
Yeah, it's crept up on us very quickly. Just 7 minutes left in this one. And Carmichael's having to slightly defend from Konomos now. Zach Rattray White, Simon Mizzomo want to get involved in this battle too. They're just snaking all the way back to 10th place at this battle for 6th.
And they're squabbling over. They're really holding each other up now. And Willison's now going to run wide in Siberia. So there's opportunity lurking in the water. I'm wondering whether or not Carmichael's actually starting to fade a little bit on those tyres. And the dive back was just a fortunate happenstance. So he's just close enough to just sort of tie himself in. And critically, the Porsche quite lazy in the straight line. Its straight line speed not its biggest attributes. It's handling characteristics that make the Porsche a strong car. Ferrari quite quick in the straight line.
Damon Woods coming back through the pack.
They've been saying it's damage control for the Dory sportsman. Doesn't matter how dominant you are, you've got to get the little things right. Getting it slowed down on pit entry is very underrated as something that you need to practice. If you come into pit entry to the pit lane for the first time and it's in the race with the pressure, you're going to screw it up. You've got to practice that a couple of times at least through practice. And Damon Woods did not get it right tonight. Might cost him the championship lead. Probably will off the road for Chris Ireland. Again, he's had a really rough couple of weeks despite the pace he's shown. He'll be looking for a calming voice in his head, I think, at this point.
I'm going to go ahead and say all of these tyres are fading, or they're just cooking. Because that track temperature is really starting to skyrocket. We're up to 34 Celsius now. I don't think these guys were prepared for these conditions. I really don't. You don't see... Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you wouldn't expect to see the number of just single car drifting off the road mistakes in a real life series. Sim racing is much the same. These guys have had a lot of opportunity to practice. I wonder whether or not they've missed a trick in terms of setup, or they've just pushed things a little bit too hard and they weren't expecting the level of grip they've got now, the lack thereof, and that's what's happening. I think Rizzo's actually put himself back quite a lot. He's got 4.5 seconds. Capel's the same. He's got 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds. Why push? Why take these risks? The guys that we're seeing taking risks and running wide are the guys that are locked in battle packs that are just running out of road, just running out of grip. There's another one. Thank you.
Yeah, well, this is a huge race for Capel. Came into the round 5th in the points. He's currently running 2nd. The man who leads the standings is 17th. The man who's 2nd in the standings, I can't find him. He's nowhere as well. The man who's 3rd, he's nowhere. The man who's 4th, he's literally not here. So Capel's going to find a huge gain, and he might vault himself right up to the top 3 in the championship.
I think he's going to be 2nd. I think he's going to be 2nd post this round. Dench is sitting in 4th. So Dench will jump, outrace our series leader at this point in time. So And Capel's going to close that margin back up to Dench. Not by a huge margin. He had a horrible round at Bathurst. Got caught up in what was just probably a silly overtaking opportunity, but somebody ahead. Not his incident. Not his incident to be a part of at Bathurst. And it was just wrong place, wrong time for Capel. Imagine if that was a top 5 performance from Capel. Imagine if that was just a 7th and 8th. It didn't even have to be a great result. He would actually potentially be a series leader right now. Consistency, boys. We're going to be talking about that later in the season.
Yes, Dench is very lucky. He's gone for a spin and he's still 4th. It could have been so much worse for him. In the end, it's probably going to be the race that gives him the championship lead, but it's been such a dramatic race. There's 3 minutes left. Is there another twist in the tail, Peter?
Well, it's one thing to have an incident, but also, you know, these sort of the top end of the pack, certainly when they have an incident, they pull themselves back up. He was straight into the pits. He took the opportunity, cleared his pit lane, straight back out and just pushed on, eyes forward, and it's certainly going to pay off for him. But we are now down to the last sort of 2 laps maybe, and this is certainly where we've seen a lot of activity over the last couple of races. There's a couple of little packs around. Ross Rizzo's 3.7 seconds in front of Capel. Dylan O'Shea is 6 seconds, 7 seconds behind him, so 3.5 behind. And Dench is 10 seconds back there. So the lead looks like it's stabilised for the top 3 or 4. But
hang on. That lead from Ross Rizzo to Capel's come down 7/10 of a second in the last lap.
I was just going to say,
it's still coming down.
He's running low. He might run out of fuel here.
The things we can't see. How are the fuel numbers looking? For Ross Rizzo, I was listening to him lift off very early into Miller. He's had a little wiggle coming through turn 12. There is 2 minutes left to go in this race, which means this lap and one more. 3.4 seconds the gap. A 1:29.1 for Rizzo that time. A 28.0 for Capel. He was a full second quicker. And if Rizzo's in fuel conservation mode, his time's only going to get slower.
Well, you did mention how quick his time through the pits were today. Ross Rizzo was one of the quickest for his pit stops.
Well, that's great. He led the race. He was punching the hole in the... If there is one driver that should have the longest pit stop of the lot of these guys, it's Ross Rizzo. So I'm confused. He shouldn't have been that long in pit lane.
But if there's one driver that knows how to save fuel, it's Ross Rizzo.
Wow, yeah, there you go.
He is Mr. Fuel Saving in Australian sim racing. If there's a race where you got to save fuel, Ross Rizzo's your man to follow. But has he got it wrong?
Well, I would say he's not Mr. Fuel Save. I'd say he's Mr. On the Company Dime.
No, it looks like the gap may have stabilised a bit on this lap. You can't see that live gap at the moment. 3.4 seconds at the start of the lap. It's gone back out to 3.9. I wonder if Rizzo just took it a little bit easy, or maybe just realised he was...
Is Lachlan Capel now saving fuel because he's dropping right back?
Yeah, or
and
Rizzo might have been... He might have been a touch short and just needed that one lap to save. The white flag waves one more time around for Rizzo. Has he got 4.4 kilometres of fuel left in that tank at the Trans-Tasman Racing Lamborghini? The gap for Capel back to O'Shea is 2 seconds. Should be comfortable, but keep your eye on it. Any one of these drivers could run out of fuel. We've got no idea what they've got left in the tank. You'd think for the top 2, the brains trust of TTR and ERT should have them getting there with enough fuel on the tank. But you never know. Through Miller, Rizzo. On the brakes nicely, hits his markers, hits the apex, hits the exit. The gap's back down to 3.8 again.
Update on Damon Woods, ladies and gents. Just gained 2 spots on that lap. So he's up to 15th as he starts his last circuit. Won't grab another spot, so we just secure it. That's as far as he can get up. He's waiting on a stake up ahead of him.
Yeah, Penny Potamos is in the action too on the outside of Rob Carmichael, trying to find a way by. Carmichael defends into Miller. Rattray White's hoping for drama that he can capitalise on. He might get up the inside of Potamos here, who overcooked the corner. Can't quite get there. But Ross Rizzo out front, I think he might be home. The gap's 4 seconds. He started on pole, got there by the barest of margins, used that clean air early on to his advantage, then fell back. We thought he might be using up too much of his tyres, but he's fought back well. He's kept out of trouble. Ross Rizzo for Trans-Tasman Racing is going to win round 3 of the Speedcafe eSeries Championship, and he nets himself $250 from Civici Porto in vouchers. Lachlan Capel comes home in second, $100 Super Porter voucher for him, and Dylan O'Shea picks up a $50 Super Porter voucher with his third place finish.
That's 2 podiums. You know who's the only driver who was on the podium last round that's on the podium here tonight? He's 17 years of age. 17 years of age, Lachlan Capel.
And gives
Matthew Dench, very good. Back in 4th position. Himself back. Obviously, it wasn't his fault, the incident that happened earlier, but he's brought himself right back there.
Yeah, great recovery there from Matthew Dench after facing the wrong way. Capel gives a congratulatory rev of the engine alongside Rizzo. Dawn O'Shea, the excitement machine, coming through to finish in 3rd place. So Damon Woods finishes 15th, the championship leader, no more after this instalment of the Speedcafe eSeries Championship.
Oh mate, that just adds some spice to the water. Damon Woods, like, how do you feel from Damon Woods? Because you've got no one to blame but yourself in that incident. That's the hard thing for him, is that he can't sit down and actively say, oh, it was a racing incident, oh, I had blows with another driver. He all on his own shoulders, his own mistake. And I have a feeling he was expecting there to be a little bit more grip on that pit lane entry, because you don't make that mistake. That's the amount of drivers I've seen of a high pedigree and a high standard in terms of iRacing made pit lane entry, exit, crossing a line, slow, too fast on entry lane. It has actually been ridiculous. So it's surprising that another one's come to the fore, because that's been a real highlight of everything that I've seen lately, is just those little errors on the way into the lane. It cost him so much tonight, so much.
Certainly has. Let's take a look at our results then for round 3 here of the Speedcafe eSeries Championship. Stunning drive from Ross Rizzo. In the end, he gets there by 4.3 seconds over Lachlan Capel. Fuel? What fuel? No problems for those two. Dawn O'Shea home in 3rd. Dench leads Flock home to round out the top 5. Adam Willison is P6 for DPR. Rob Carmichael, Kenny Cottermoss, they were in the action late on in that race. Carmichael wins out in 7th. Rattray White comes home in 9th, and Simon Mizomo finishes 10th after starting this one back in 21st. 11th for McMullen. Mitch McLeod comes home in 12th. He had a pretty lowly round 2 effort, so he'll be happy with that recovery. Riley Bilson drives from dead last to 13th. Matt Bailey 14th. Damon Woods recovers sort of to 15th after his speeding penalty. Luke Brown, Jason Benson, Alistair Bales 16th, 17th and 18th.
3 teammates. Luke, Jason and Alistair. Robbie Bradbury from 29 into P19, and round out the 20 was Jared Knight. He started P22. Luke Mitchinson didn't have a very good race this time round. He's went from P9 to P21. Jamie McKnight started in 23, finished 22nd. So I'm just listening to a little bit of there's a bit of commentary going on with race control and a couple of drivers at the end of the race, just sorting things out.
Yeah, so it was, I believe you just said Lee Williamson, 31st, Emil Sharma, Luke Berardino, Shu Kang, Chris Pellett, Tyson Hammer, Russ Green, Aaron Oberstella, Andre Yusuf, and Sebastian Vondel, the 2 non-finishers as well.
Well, let's go and have a chat to our race podium for today. We're going to have a chat to our race winner first, Mr. Fuel Saving, got there in the end. Ross Rizzo, welcome to the broadcast booth for Trans-Tasman Racing. Congratulations on getting your first win of the Speedcafe eSeries Championship.
Well, I'll take the good with the bad, but yeah, there was definitely a lot. That race definitely fell into my hands after it very much fell out of my control from about lap 7 onwards. You could see me really struggling for tyre wear. And I think at that point, I felt like I was going to struggle to even be on the podium. And I was planning to pit on the lap that I did end up pitting, but the back marker certainly seemed to throw a spanner in the works for everyone else nearby. So it turned out to be very fortuitous in the end. And then my goodness, I'll take that. I'm a bit speechless, to be honest.
It looked at many points that you'd lost that touch from pole. We thought you'd run out of tyres, and then we thought for a minute there at the end that you were going to run out of fuel because you dropped a lot of time, a second to Capel in the closing stages. What was going on there in your mind?
I actually I've been out of the saddle for a little while, so I haven't done a pit stop on the new build. So came into the pits thinking it was going to overfill the car, and then was feverishly clicking through everything and ended up underfilling, which is a much better option. But yeah, I just need to save a litre of fuel or so, which turned out to be not so difficult given the rate that the tyres were dropping off. So that, again, quite lucky, but it was very, very scary, I'll be honest, when JRT was telling me all kinds of wacky, impossible numbers to save in a very short period of time. But eventually got it under control, and I think, yeah, again, just lucky in the final stint that ultimately the pace wasn't really there from the rest of the field to kind of catch up. So, yeah.
And in terms of the actual track conditions out there, we saw lots of drama for lots of cars just going off by themselves and having issues. Was it tricky out there? Was it trickier than you expected?
I was on struggle street from lap 7 or 8. I was sliding around like crazy, and yeah, as I said, I didn't think I was going to hold on to any of those anywhere near the front. You know, it's been a long time since I've driven in the sim. This was certainly a trial by fire, so like absolutely thrilled with the result. Wasn't going to put too much pressure on myself, and then suddenly P1 and oh god, here we go again. Let's see how we go, kind of thing. So yeah, look, definitely struggled out there. Probably wasn't the most deserving driver to win this race, to be honest. But I'll take it. It was a very good race, very good induction to the series.
Well, trust me when I say you take them when you can get them, especially in sim racing with a level of competition out there today. Before we let you go, who gets it done for you? Who do you want to give a shout out to for today's result?
First and foremost to Speedcafe and the series sponsors for getting the series up and running. Obviously, as you just said there, Ryan, that the quality of the field is quite remarkable. So hats off to you guys. Congratulations for putting the series on and getting the turnout that it has. And a big thank you to Trans-Tasman Racing, Virtual Racing School, TP Race Designs, Kart FX Model Cars, Parenzo, and X-Trim Motor Trimming.
Thank you very much, Ross. Congratulations once again. Hope to see you back for round 4 up at the front again.
I'd love to be back if you'll have me back.
I want to see you there. So that's Ross Rizzo there, your race winner for round 3 of the Speedcafe eSeries Championship. We got Scott Rankin standing by with the man who's gone back-to-back on the podium, Lachlan Capel.
Evening, Lachlan. It's an interesting one whenever you come to an Australian racetrack, let alone Phillip Island. We talked about tyres last time out from Road America and how important that was. And another big wiggle early on in that Mercedes. We didn't miss that one last round. Didn't miss that one again tonight, mate. Tricky race here.
Yeah, the Merc was... I was pretty confident with it, but it was just... you couldn't really pick a tyre because they all just kind of fell off at the end. I'm looking at my garage right now and my right front is at 23%, my right rear is at 31%. So I'd say it was a bit of a missed opportunity to take rights this time by, but I thought just the way my tyres were so balanced when coming into pit lane that it probably wouldn't make a difference too much because the car I didn't really trust the car enough, but over the last couple of laps, it definitely, on those left-handers, it started to slide and not like it very much. So the Merc was still competitive enough that I was able to stay with the top guys for a little bit, but it just didn't have the raw pace, I don't feel like, from over a stint compared to a short run.
In terms of things, that's actually for the guy, again, people listening along at home may not know iRacing. He's talking iRacing has a percentage number that sort of tracks where the wear is going throughout the run. Once you get underneath 50%, the tyres actually turn up their wear rates. They do actually go away from you a lot quicker. Talking at the pit stop, so you weren't concerned about the wear whatsoever at that pit stop. It was quite a short pit stop. Was there an opportunity in there to do 2 tyres? Is that something you're going to have to test, tweak, and practice for the rounds that are coming up?
Possibly, yeah. Would have been possibly a better idea. I think they were like the low 60s, and I thought I could be able to get away with it a little bit, but yeah, it faded a little bit over the stint. Was getting a little bit worried that O'Shea was catching a little bit, but I just thought that the gap that I had originally built up over the first initial stint where the Merc was good, just a little bit too hard to overcome by. So at the end, yeah, that's kind of what happened. But yeah, I feel really bad because I know the Ferrari might not have had the best pace, but obviously Dench getting unlucky with the back marker and then Damon getting a speeding penalty. The real drivers who should have gotten the podium unfortunately just had mishaps, so you know, you got to be there to collect the pieces. But yeah,
Mate, I mean, things are starting to go your way. I mean, throw it back is just now round one at Bathurst. Obviously, everything that happened there was completely and utterly out of control. We're starting to see that the consistency, there's a lot of pace across a lot of guys here, but multiple drivers have now had mistakes. Everyone has ended up in a really bad situation so far into this series. Is that a worry going forwards? How are you going to manage of what is such a highly competitive league? Because we cannot talk about how difficult it is to actually get on the podium here, and you're the only one to go back-to-back 2 weeks in a row.
It's just because I've driven GTs for ever since I actually got in the sim in early 2021, so through all the patches, through all the differences, I've gotten myself to understand how these cars drive at all different tracks. So I do sometimes struggle with consistency, I will say, but it's just, you gotta have the feeling in the car. And when I make my own sets and use baseline sets from other companies, I can sort of make a set that just makes me happy in terms of a middle ground of feeling comfortable in the car. So it's harder to sort of have mistakes with the cars when you tune it to be exactly how you want it to do and exactly how you want it to turn, brake, steer, everything you kind of want it to do. And the mistakes, I will say, will happen. We're all human, it's going to happen, but it's just about minimizing what could happen and just focusing on the road ahead.
Mate, finally your opportunities. Big switch over to Evolution Racing Team 2 weeks in a row. I think you've rewarded that faith in you, so time to thank those sponsors that make it possible for you and the team, mate.
Yeah, as you said, obviously a big shout out to Evolution Racing Team and Brenton being so kind and being able to pick me up as a driver and going on to do a lot bigger and better things with them. And then a shout out to you guys for doing the broadcast. Speedcafe is quite a big place to be, and for them being able to host a eSeries is tremendous, and for me being able to take part in that is brilliant as well.
And then I believe, finally, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Lockie. It's a pleasure to have you along for the ride as always. We're going to shuffle one step further back. Pete, I think you got Dylan O'Shea on standby.
Dylan O'Shea, Dylan, third place. Congratulations. You started out of P6, which is a good starting spot considering the competition that was around you today. You picked up a couple of spots lap 1. You had a very interesting moment lap 4 coming out of Miller. Tell us a little bit about your race.
Yeah, I feel like I just picked up on everyone else's misfortune in that one. I was just able to kind of run my own race after like the first 4 or 5 laps and just be able to pick up the pieces from others' misfortune, I guess. Yeah, so just lucky to come away with third, definitely.
Mate, we saw you had a very solid race. As I said, there was a little bit of an incident there. You ran a little wide and ended up in the grass, but you got it back on track. How were your tyres at the end of the race? Lachlan said his were pretty cooked by the end.
Yeah, I felt like at the start I was pretty worried because I had absolutely nothing compared to what Lockie had, and you know I was losing the gap from the top 3 or 4, and yeah, so I was pretty worried. But then at the end of the race there, I was just able to pull back quite a bit of time. So just unlucky that I had a bit of a moment early on in the race and cost me a couple of seconds, which could have been second, but yeah, no, it was good.
Yeah, look, unfortunately we saw Damon Woods and Matthew Dench have dropped back a bit and opened the door for a few other drivers, but mate, it was certainly a solid drive. The Ferrari, how did you feel the Ferrari was tonight?
Yeah, it was alright. As I said, it was pretty slow early on, but it managed to hold the tyres compared to others, and yeah, it was quick at the end.
Yeah, no, you certainly would. It looked like you were catching Lockie a little bit at the end. We thought there might have been a little bit of a battle, but Lockie and Ross seemed to have it under control. fuel for yourself? How are your fuel numbers?
Oh, mate, I couldn't feel any less. I was right on the brink, and yeah, perfect, really. I was fine.
Yeah, no, that's good, mate. No, there's some very fast guys out there tonight, and you did a great job to get in third place. Who would you like to thank your sponsors?
Just a quick shout out to all the 9-5 boys and the team sponsors: Racecraft, Turn In Race Apparel, RSW Graphics, Racing Is, Cutting Edge Tracks, and RB Media.
Mate, your car looked great tonight. Great job there by Who Does Your Livery. Looks really good with the RK sim, so no, well done.
Cheers, mate.
Well, that's the podium, gentlemen.
There's your 3 place getters from round 3 of the Speedcafe eSeries Championship. And none of it possible, of course, without all of the amazing sponsors here at Speedcafe. Not just Super Cheap Auto that make it happen. You got Truck Assist, Morris Finance, Pertec, RJ Batteries, Mobile One, Michelin, Tyre Plus. There, Super Cheap Auto, King Chrome, KTM, Maguire's, Optus, and Lloyd's Classic Car Auction. All fantastic partners of Speedcafe, the world's #1 independent motorsport news website. Scott, what more can you say about the action tonight? It just started and it did not stop.
I think drama. There is only one word that I think sums up tonight's race, and it's drama. From lights out to go. I mean, Bilson obviously getting the penalty, not recognising that he had to start from the rear, that he'd actually received the checker flag. That's what it was, by the way. Went down and followed up with that one. He just didn't know that he'd actually received the checker flag. He just wasn't aware. Sometimes it's just that much in the zone. There was drivers up and down the field that were just in that zone, struggling to keep the car on the island tonight, to be fair with you. And tires. The new Pirellis of the GT3 series, boy, they're making some drama for us. This is mental. I haven't actually seen GT3 racing be this competitive and this close in the last couple of years. So everything that certainly happened with the balance of performance, the tire model, man, it's just coming off. We're getting the best of everything here. This has been phenomenal. I can't wait. 2 weeks? Why do we have to wait 2 weeks? Let's have one next week.
Yeah, go NASCAR last week, 36. But no, there's 10 rounds in this season, and the next one is on May 12. We're going to the virtual Sandown International Motor Raceway, and that is going to be quite the different style of racing to what we've seen tonight. And from there, we end up at Imola, Barcelona, Montreal, the Red Bull Ring, my personal favourite, at Watkins Glen, and Spa to end it all. It's going to be a heap of fun. If you want to get involved, head on over to speedcafe.com and you can register yourself for this series and be a part of the action. There's still 6 more rounds to go in this series. But for tonight, that wraps us up. We've given $400 in Super Cheap Auto vouchers out to our top 3 drivers. Maybe if you come along and have a crack in round 4, you might get your hands on some extra cash for that little part you need for your car. Been an absolute pleasure tonight here on Speedcafe TV from myself, Ryan Jones, Scott Rankin, and Peter Davison alongside me, and Luke behind the scenes working the cameras and everything else you see on your screens. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time.